Hey there, this is Freddy with 5280scuba.com. You know, I just love where technology is heading with the dive computers. And with the Shearwater Perdix computer, it's not just about sales features. We'll get to that in just a minute. Let's talk about batteries for a little bit. Let you know that we don't have longevity with this product. It's a fairly new computer, and this is our very first review of the Perdix by Shearwater. So you'll keep an eye out for the future reviews when we talk about durability and after having used it for a year at a time. My first impression of the computer really is, the first thing you notice is the color, which I'll get into in a little bit, but it's also the size. Computers kind of followed what cell phones did. The goal was to get the cell phone smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller from the brick they started. And then they got them really tiny flip phones. And the dive computers kind of did the same thing. It started out really big, hose attached. And even on the wrist, the old ones were really long and large. And then they started getting smaller, 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 till you have wristwatch size. And now some of the higher end computers now are starting to get a little bigger again. And they're adding features for the diver, which is a very good thing. So first impression is it looks good. It has a good design to it. It's masculine looking, perhaps. It's not oversized, and it's a lot of screen rather than a lot of computer. My cool factor rating for this computer really is just based on my first impression. Again, I say this is new to me, so this is my first review of the computer. After using the computer for a little bit, I feel like I know the designers just a little bit. You can sense the logic, the things that are important to them, just like priority pieces in the screen and things like that, and the way certain parts of it work, which I'll explain just a little bit. You get a sense of who the designers were in this computer. The design, I think, is nice. I think what they're doing here is they've maximized the screen. And you don't see buttons. You know, you see a nice bezel that's not just a square blah, ugly computer, and it's very functional, and the buttons don't take up a lot of room. It doesn't take up a lot of room on your wrist and that sort of thing. Okay, so the cool factor, it looks pretty good. It's not just a square brick like a lot of the dive computers have become, and they're not bad looking. So maximizing the visibility of the screen, keeping it as small as possible, but packing in a lot of features, which it's going to take a little bit to get through the features on this one. So the features and the benefits, this computer is packed. We're going to start out with the obvious. This is a hoseless design, so it utilizes a transmitter which sends a signal to the computer. You wear the computer on your wrist, the transmitter is on your regulator, and it sends a signal back and forth so it can measure the pressure and how your consumption and things like that. Okay? The computer itself, being hoseless, allows it to be just a little bit smaller, less cumbersome. You don't have anything hanging around the side that you have to reach for, nothing to drag on the coral. Personally, I like hoseless computers. My personal computer that I use all the time is hoseless. It's just one less hose you have to mess with, you have to worry about, one less thing to go wrong with the computer. Okay, that being said, there are batteries in each side. Let's talk about batteries for a little bit. Many dive computers on the market today, they use all kinds of batteries. Some are very easy to change, like the Shearwater Perdix is changeable by the user, by you, the diver. And some you have to take to a shop or send it off to get it changed. So for this review, I'm going to talk a little bit about the wonderful part of the computer they designed to use with a AA battery. Who'd have thunk it, right? You can find them anywhere. You're going to get 45 hours worth of use out of a AA battery. Some a little bit more depending on how you have the settings, brightness of the screen, etc. The transmitter itself uses a CR2 battery, very common in a photo department. You can find them most places. I recommend you carry one or two extras in your dive bag, simply because you may go to a third world country where they don't have them. That's happened before. And many computers use them, so chances are if you dive with numerous people or on a group trip, somebody's going to have a CR2 or you'll have one to loan. Now the transmitter itself has a user changeable battery. You just unscrew the cap. It has a double O-ring seal, and you pop out the CR2, put the new CR2 in. It'll last you approximately 100 plus dives. Okay, I've got as much as almost a year diving quite often, almost a year out of the transmitter battery. Batteries, the AA battery in the computer itself, not quite as much use out of it, but you're going to get, you know, about 40 hours, 30 to 40 hours out of the battery here, but it's a AA, so you can find them anywhere and you change it yourself. The transmitter itself has a softer plastic. When it's in the sun, in the Caribbean, or wherever you're diving in the bright sun, it tends to get a little soft, so you have to be a little careful if you unscrew it if you're changing the battery on the boat. You can kind of strip that plastic right there. I recommend a 10 peso coin because it has ridges, it has edges, it seems to be the perfect shape for it. Pop it right out, even in the warm sun, works perfect. The mounting method for this computer is a little different. You have a couple of choices. I don't have the other one here, but it has the bungee style straps, much like a lot of computers have. They're thicker, they're almost like a watch band type strap. This has a double one. You actually connect the straps together first, slide your arm through, and then just cinch them down. And then you just loosen them, but you leave them attached. You don't unclip them. What I've chosen to do for the demo on this particular computer is their bungee. So their bungee has the rubber, it's almost like a surgical tubing, and what you do is you make it a little looser than you would normally think about. So you put your arm through it, okay? So it's still a little loose, but then what you do is you pull the bungee tight and you wrap it up over the top, okay? That holds it nice and snug. Having only used this computer for a short period of time, I don't have a year on it. So far, I love that method. I am skeptical about the longevity of surgical tubing in salt water, so I'm taking very good care of it. But I would be very nervous if it were to break, come apart. If you notice that it's double threaded underneath, so if one side broke, the other side would still hang on. So I don't think I'm going to lose the computer, but that's very convenient. It's loose enough to slide over a wetsuit, bend it right over, tighten it right down, works good. Another one of the features of this computer is multiple diving modes. There's recreational, technical, closed circuit, gauge only. For the purpose of this review, I'm only reviewing the recreational side of things, okay? The technical aspect of it is left for more technical diving. For this purpose, this is a recreational dive computer. It has so much more capability than that. The way I word it is that this has so many features. It has more features than the recreational diver's ever going to need. However, it's not missing a single one that the recreational diver is going to want. So with the multiple diving modes, it can grow with you if you get into different kinds of diving. It's got a 2.2-inch high-resolution color screen. It's very easy to read underwater and on the surface, and it makes sense. When I say it makes sense, what I mean by that is when you look at the color of the screen initially, my first time I used it, it has a teal and a white lettering. And my first thought was, oh, I thought this was a full-color computer. And the white and the teal stands out wonderfully. Now here's why I say that's intelligent and how you start to know the designers of this. What's important? To see the screen underwater, see all your, your pressure, your depth, all that kind of thing. Perfect. Now, the use of color can be a tool. What I mean by that is, what does yellow mean? What does yellow mean? Caution, right? What does red mean? Perhaps danger, that sort of a thing. So when you see just the teal and white, everything's perfect. It's not using a splash of color all over the screen to mark different things. The teal and white, simple to read, sunlight, doesn't matter. Now, you're down a little while and you're heading into the yellow. You know you've been down a while, your saturation level's rising, you're approaching decompression limit, and it's going to tell you, all of a sudden on the graph you see yellow. Catches your attention because it's not the norm. The normal is the teal and the white. I love that feature. Then all of a sudden you get into the red, you're into deco mode. There's no guessing. There's no second guessing it. You know when there's a challenge because it shows up and it's obvious and it stands out because of the use of color. Of all the computers I've reviewed, I like this Compass the best. I mentioned to you just a minute ago It does not eliminate the rest of the screen, so it's not compass only. You can still see your depth, you can still see your pressure, and it's very simple. The compass is right at the bottom. It moves very quickly. One of the things about this computer is that it has an extremely fast processor. That helps because using a compass, for example, it's exact real time. There's no lag in it at all. The reason why I like this compass the best is because while you're viewing it, it is very simple. It's right at the bottom of your screen. I don't know if you can actually even see that on there, but it's right at the bottom of the screen. So only a portion of your screen is compass, but it's very simple. So instead of showing you the whole ring of the compass, you don't really need that. All you really need to know is where you're headed and you're heading. And you can mark your heading, so if you get off track, you can bring it right back around to the dot and align yourself with the direction that you want to head. Really, the smartest part about that is that it doesn't eliminate the rest of the screen. So many other compasses, you switch it to compass mode and that's all you have. Okay? You can customize your display. This is a great feature because you can put the information most important to you and eliminate some of those things that's not so important to you. So through the advanced features of this computer, you just make the screen look pretty much like you want to. I mean, there's some limits, but of all the computers out there, this is one of the easiest to read, easiest to set up. The choices are extremely obvious. 2 buttons and they're on the sides, not on the front. You can do them with gloves. They're not very sensitive to where you could accidentally bump it, but you hold them for just, half a second or so, and it makes the change for you. There is a Bluetooth connection that will allow you to download your dive profile and your log. The information available to you is very comprehensive. It stores 1,000 hours of information. And what do you want? You want your depth, you want your time, you want your profile. It has it all. So that's not a challenge. It'll more information than the average recreational diver is going to want. 3 gases to choose from, and you can adjust the percentage to your use. So for example, if you're an air diver, 21%. If you're a nitrox diver, you can set the other 2 gases to 32 or 36%. And you can interchange between them easily. So you're not locked out like a lot of computers will lock you out because if you tell them you're going to dive on air, you need a certain period of time out of the water before you can switch it. This one allows you to switch it immediately. So your first dive is air because it's your deep dive. You can't go as deep on nitrox. Your second dive, you're going to dive 36%. You switch it over. All the calculations automatically for your profile and your planning go into the 36. So it tells you exactly how deep you can go, how long you can stay, how much longer, if any, you need to stay out of the water. So it's got all the features that most of the dive computers have today also with your planning features. If you want to do planning your next dive, you want to say, okay, if we go to 65 feet, how long can we stay? Or 85 feet, how long can we stay? And if so, how long do I have to wait before I get back in the water to do it again or to do a different depth? It's all going to be very, very simple. It takes the thinking out of it, though. If I'm making it seem too complex, I don't mean to. If you get out of the water with this and you don't touch it, you're going to look at your wrist and it's going to say surface interval. And it's going to tell you, it's going to start counting up. So I've been out 4 minutes. I know I need to stay out somewhere around 45 minutes to an hour, according to the dive master, so it's going to start counting. It also has a clock, so you can tell. But it'll count up. So yep, I've been out of the water 45 minutes. I can start getting ready to do my next dive. You'll also see your saturation level. So if you've been out of the water now for 20 minutes, you know your saturation level is coming down. If you were in the yellow, you need to look and you see. If you're in the green, you're good to go. But if you're still in the high green, you may not get as long of a dive on the next one. Too much information, I know. But in reality, that's how you use a dive computer. You get out, you look when it's safe to go back in, you jump back in, you're good, it can measure it. If you have to go back in sooner than perhaps you're just barely in the green, then it's going to warn you if you get into the yellow higher levels and red, so you might have a shorter dive. But you'll never not have the information you need. So rating the quality and function of the Shearwater Perdix, this is our very first review, so we don't have a lot of history to go on, other than the research that you can do just like we did online. The online blogs generally speak very well of this computer. Numerous people in the technical diving world are loyal to the brand. That's how Shearwater basically got their start. They do a lot of technical diving gear, and this computer started in the technical world from other computers that they had before, but this is their first entrance, I believe, into the recreational side of things. And again, I mentioned it's got all the features a recreational diver could possibly want and more. The large companies like Hollis, DiveRight, JJ, they use Shearwater products in their manufacture of their rebreathers and things. So that to me speaks well of the quality and the function. Again, after we have a year on this computer, we will add to this review. So I have used the dive computer, and so far I love it. As far as quality and function, I have had not one glitch with it. I haven't had any challenges with battery usage, or I haven't even worn out my first set of batteries yet. I'm getting ready to take it on to 2 weeks to Fiji, put it through a little bit more of its paces, and I don't intend to change any batteries before I go, just to kind of push it to the limit a little bit. I've taken it down to about 130 feet, no challenge whatsoever, no leakage, it's performed exactly as they've said it should, and I have had not a single quality issue, both in the packaging, in the shipment, the way we received them, the use of the product, the O-rings of the product, even mounting the different kinds of bands and straps to try it both ways. I prefer so far the surgical tubing strap simply because it's easier for one-handed use. As far as value goes for this computer, the way I feel about dive computers is their life support. They are the piece of equipment, that and the mask, that you should never scrimp on. So I love a name brand. I love a tested brand. I actually like the fact that this equipment came from technical diving background, simply because if it's not right at 500 feet deep, you're dead. So technical equipment oftentimes is very refined and it works very well. We expect this to, based on all the research. I researched this computer for 8 months before we decided to carry it, and before we did the review. It was based on requests by some of the viewers to actually demonstrate this computer and do a review on it. That in part led us to bringing it on as a brand. So it's right there in the top hoseless style computers in its price range. This is an investment that most part-time recreational divers may have to think about. Some of your upper-end dive computers, hoseless design, full-color screens, they're an investment. When I say that, I mean they're a little bit expensive. When you have a range of computers, your hoseless, wrist mount, full color, they're going to be on the top end of the price range. So it is something to consider. Personally, I love the freedom that a hoseless computer brings. Every computer made with a hose attached, in my opinion, is going to start with a little bit of a ding against it, because this just makes so much sense. It's so much nicer to have. You wouldn't want to carry a battery pack in your back pocket with a cord to your wristwatch. You put the battery on the inside, you put it on your wrist. That's my opinion. They work well. They're tried, they're true, they're proven. They've been around for 20 plus years, so I tend to trust them once I've used them. So it is a little bit expensive, but you know, this computer has a little bit more value in my book towards the value rating, simply because it's a user changeable battery. You figure whatever it costs you to take your computer into the dive shop, they're going to have a fee to change the battery for you. Hopefully, if it's a reputable shop, they're going to do a pressure test underwater, and it'll in a chamber, so you know it's not going to leak. So there's some value to that. But with this having double seals, you can unscrew it yourself, put in a new battery, AA, very affordable, very cheap battery out there. Then I think that gives it a little bit more value. So to highlight a couple of the unique properties of this, obviously it's a color screen. I love the color screen. It's very, very visible. It's not like a calculator or a liquid crystal display. Easy to see, sunlight underwater. That's unique to it. It has a good size to it. When you need a computer and you're underwater and you glance at it, there's not anything to figure out other than what's on the screen. And what's on the screen is you can control some of that to an extent of what you're looking at. So you're not looking at for buttons and how much computer's there and all that. You're just boom, it's just screen. I love that. A couple of different kinds of mounting straps. That's unique. A lot of people do the surgical tubing these days. I'm trying it for the first time with this computer. So far I like it. I am a little nervous about the longevity and the durability of the tubing, but I will inspect it before my dives. I don't expect a problem. It does utilize the size to the diver's advantage, so whether you're a young diver with the best eyes, or whether you're an older diver with a little bit bigger screen, because it's almost all screen, it's not like a huge massive computer on there with a 2.2-inch screen on there. The screen is pretty much the size of the computer. Fits well on your wrist. At this time, my durability rating, I really can't honestly give you a rating on it. Because the computer is new to us, this is our first review, we don't have much time in it, then it wouldn't be fair to just give it a durability rating. I will say that the reviews online that I've seen by divers that have used it is very favorable. As far as durability, I don't see challenges or problems out there. I did consider the brand for 8 months, so I kind of paid attention to it out there and thinking, we're going to let it get some time under its belt a little bit before we bring it on and do a review, because there's so many products out there to review. I did speak to other dive shop owners that carry this brand, and they spoke very favorable of it. As far as the time that the battery lasts and things were some of the key features that they enjoyed in this computer, that it lasted a long time. I purchased 4 of the computers right out first, so that it wouldn't just be one out of the box that we could test. We're going to run it across the gamut and try 4 different ones just to see. That's the best way to know if there's going to be a quality change. You know, you might have got a good one, but you also might have got a bad one too. In all fairness, I don't like to, if I have one computer or one product that just fails immediately, I want to try it again with another one just to see if there was a glitch, because that can happen with anything. How often have you broke a fin in half? I actually broke a fin in half one time and tried 4 different same model. Again, they were perfect. So it was just some strange thing in their prototype. Okay, the comments so far that we've received online from other people is they love the computer. There are numerous Shearwater loyalists that have moved on to this computer from some of the others because of the extended features of this one, and their comments, you know, we take that into account, and it's all favorable. I haven't found anything to discount that yet. So we cannot rate the durability yet, but we will get back to this after having used the product for about a year. So some of the feedback. I want you to know I like this computer. It's hard to do a review that has a lot of meat to it when you haven't used it for a long period of time. I take it very serious, and I am responsible to you, the viewers, to give you the best review I possibly can, and I try to be as critical as I can be. So far, I have not had a single challenge with this computer. It's very intuitive, like I mentioned. You look at the screen, you see what you want. You change to the compass. It doesn't obliterate the screen, doesn't get rid of it, just brings it just at the very bottom, simple to use. There's intelligent design in the use of the color, the way they bring it when it's needed. I love that part of this computer, and yet that's not mentioned in their features anywhere. That's somebody that was thinking when they were designing this thing. So I'm very excited to put a year on this computer and try it out, see how everything comes out. I will say that it does stand out among many of the computers. If you are a person that looks for something very user-friendly, you could probably, I know you could, not probably, you could get through this computer just by pushing the buttons and playing with it for a little bit. There might be some features, some advanced features you won't be able to get to without looking at the manual, but it's that simple. Most of the dive, you can get through all by itself. Water activated underwater, you can set that. There's a lot of features to this thing when you start playing with it. So I do like the computer. I don't expect challenges. I expect it to be one of my favorites as we continue on, only because of what I've seen so far, and it has the parts and pieces within dive computers that I think every diver should have. And it's not missing anything for the recreational diver. Some of the improvements. I had to think about this for a little bit. They put a lot of thought into these computers. I think it would make sense to design the transmitter with a AA battery. Why? Simply because there's a AA battery in the main computer unit. Why have to take 2? It just seems to make sense to me. They're cheap, they're affordable, user changeable. It's almost big enough as it is anyway, and a CR2 is 2/3 of a AA. So that's an improvement I'd like to see in the future. Some of the design features that can be personalized to tell the difference between two computers. What I mean by that is, you have this computer, I have this computer, we're buddies. We throw them down on the bench, which one's which? Which one's yours? Which one's mine? How about a different colored faceplate or some way to personalize the computer in a certain way without having to take a marker and writing on it? That's what I'd like to see in the future too. Something color coordinated or to differentiate between two different computers. So to summarize this, the pros are, first and foremost, it's got a bright, full color screen. Wonderful underwater, easy to see. The teal and the white colors they chose shows up very crisp. Light or dark underwater, night diving, same. It is a hoseless design, my favorite. Battery replacement by the user and customizable display. Multiple dive modes can fit the different divers. Those are the pros. Okay, so for the negatives, the cons, I'm not going to make one up for the purpose of this review because I don't have the longevity in it. The only thing I can think of right now that would be negative really is the price is probably going to eliminate it from some of the divers' dive bag. It's an expensive computer. In my opinion, it's worth it. At this point, I would spend the money. I did spend the money, and I think being life support, you want something quality on your wrist with the nice features that enhances the quality of your dive without hoses, dragging, things like that. So really, no negative other than the price. So the Perdix by Shearwater, the BA scale rating we have for the cool factor is an 8. For the features and the benefits is a 9. For the quality and the function is an 8. For the durability, we're not rating it on this, so it's not taking into account. For the value is a 6.5. The overall BA rating for the product is 7.7. Now, if you've used this computer and you want to leave some comments down below, or if there's another product you'd like us to review, just leave it down below and we'll get back to it. Thanks. I just love these no BS reviews, don't you? You might consider subscribing to our channel. And if you want to know when the next one shows up, just click on the bell icon down below. It'll remind you.